Marriage and divorce are very difficult topics to discuss, and certainly a challenging topic for a homily. Nevertheless, the first and third readings invite us to reflect on these very issues. One of the reasons divorce is so delicate to discuss is that it's so painful and so personal. And today it's also pervasive. Half of all marriages end in divorce. I'm sure there are people sitting here who have been divorced. And if you are not divorced yourself, you may have children or parents or siblings or friends who are divorced. I know I do. Let's take a closer look at Mark, the Gospel of Mark, and see how this might be speaking to us this morning. The Pharisees wanted to know where Jesus stood on the issue of divorce. And Jesus didn't answer the question directly. They were trying to get him to comment on the Mosaic law. And under that law, a husband could just say 3 times, I divorce you, I divorce you, I divorce you. And that was the end. Even easier than our no-fault divorce. And in some cultures, especially where the Jewish culture intermixed with some of the others, that privilege was given to the wife as well, where she could divorce the husband. So Jesus refuses to get into the argument as to what reasons could justify that, and simply points to the ideal. He points back to the Genesis reading that we heard as well. In this discussion, we really need to balance 2 things. On the one hand, the clear ideal teaching of Jesus that marriage is a lifelong commitment, and on the other hand, the pastoral reality that there are so many people in the church and out of the church who are divorced, and the pastoral care that is needed for them. While it may be obvious to you, it's not obvious to everyone that divorce, in and of itself, is simply a civil matter. It has nothing to do with one's standing in the church. And a divorced person, per se, has all the rights and privileges of a married couple or a single person. People have often said, however, that when they are a member of a congregation and they divorce, that they sometimes feel isolated, even if the divorce is for a very reasonable and justifiable situation. Sometimes that feeling of isolation is real, other times it's more felt. And were truth to be told, many divorced members of a parish, especially those raising children as single parents, are respected and admired by others, even though we don't often voice the awe that we have of raising a family on their own. As a parish, you and I need to be sensitive to the special needs of an individual who's experiencing a divorce. It's an extremely painful time. We ought to look not with condemnation, but compassion. It's not a time to isolate, but to include. As I mentioned, Jesus harkens back to the Genesis story that we heard in the first reading, where the point of the story is that Adam was incomplete until Eve was created. While it's not a literal story, it's more of a figurative one, there's truth there that men and women are considered equal, and they're suitable partners, is how the translation describes it. And when they commit themselves to each other, it's supposed to be in such an intimate union that it is for life. To talk of divorce and marriage is indeed delicate, but it's important that the Scriptures challenge us to be true to the teaching of the church, while at the same time recognize the pastoral needs for those who experience the death of a relationship through divorce. As we gather in prayer this morning, perhaps our prayer can be twofold. On the one hand, we can pray for married couples, that God would give them the grace and the power of perseverance. And at the same time, we pray for those who have undergone the pain of a failed marriage. May both be supported and be active in this community we call church.